Viewers were already buzzing about Sunny Hostin's unrelenting remarks on Donald Trump when Bill Maher suddenly entered the fray, turning daytime drama into a full-blown media spectacle. Everyone knew Hostin had no qualms about criticizing the former president's legal woes, personal choices, and anything else that made headlines. But few expected Maher, an outspoken commentator who'd spent years lampooning Trump himself, to come roaring to Trump's defense, all while dismantling Hostin's arguments on live television in a way that left audiences slack-jawed. The tension began simmering the moment Maher pointed out a growing irony in Hostin's approach. She'd been repeatedly harping on Trump's alleged moral failures, even invoking her past career as a federal prosecutor to bolster her critiques. Yet rumors had started to circulate that her own household might soon face legal trouble, specifically that Hostin's husband, Manny, was under investigation for issues related to medical billing and potential RICO violations. Maher seized on the story, pointing out the glaring disconnect between Hostin preaching moral high ground on TV and the swirling scandals. Maher pounced on this angle and quickly claimed she was displaying the very behavior she decried in others, lambasting one figure for alleged wrongdoing while overlooking her family's mounting legal hazards. Maher didn't just challenge Hostin's consistency, he tore into the entire rationale behind her daily verbal assaults. In his view, Hostin's approach wasn't only about holding someone accountable, it felt more like a relentless pursuit of personal vindication, which Maher believed would inevitably backfire. He argued that hammering away at Trump's every move only fuels his supporters to double down. When someone of Hostin's prominence and legal background takes the stand, so to speak, and singles out Trump as a problem of epic proportions, his base simply sees another member of the media class ganging up on their chosen candidate. Maher hammered this point relentlessly, weaving statistics and public opinion polls into his commentary to prove that every time Trump is dragged through the mud, his polls often show a bump in support. Hostin didn't back down. She continued delivering scorching critiques on The View, weaving in references to Trump's past public statements and ongoing investigations, never shying away from ominous hints that these legal entanglements might escalate. In her eyes, these examples were evidence enough that he was unfit for leadership. She took special aim at his character, labeling him someone who constantly skirted the boundaries of the law. Yet Maher fired back with a different perspective. He reminded Hostin, and anyone watching, that condemning someone based on broad allegations without seriously weighing other factors often looks more like vengeance than justice. The dynamic grew even more compelling once Hostin's personal life began leaking into the public discourse. Multiple outlets reported that Manny Hostin was named in a large-scale investigation involving fraudulent billing and improper compensation. Hostin and her husband responded by hiring high-profile lawyers and filing a multi-million-dollar countersuit for defamation. Maher, with his trademark smirk, drew a parallel to every high-profile figure who has ever hurled accusations only to find themselves dodging legal trouble soon after. He questioned why Hostin, if she had her own family's legal uncertainties brewing, would keep prodding another figure's alleged or pending cases. It wasn't just irony to him, it bordered on setting herself up for a fall. While Maher dissected this situation with comedic bite, he didn't stop at Hostin's rumored hypocrisy. He also took aim at the high-octane environment of daytime television. He hinted that shows like The View thrive on dramatic tension, hooking viewers by constantly drumming up confrontation. In his view, the relentless focus on Trump's every misstep may serve ratings more than justice. If Sunny Hostin had been serious about genuinely scrutinizing Trump's record, Maher believed a more balanced, less theatrical approach would have emerged. Instead, the spectacle of daily takedowns came across like a scripted storyline, and the second any whiff of scandal touched her personal life, the entire structure began to wobble. Hostin's co-hosts on The View tried rallying behind her, but even that backfired in unexpected ways. When Whoopi Goldberg stepped in to defend Hostin's fervent criticisms, Maher spotlighted the fact that Goldberg herself had recently landed in trouble for controversial on-air statements. Goldberg ended up facing a brief suspension, illustrating, in Maher's eyes, how quickly someone can go from wielding moral authority to being on the hot seat themselves. He joked that the media cycle seems to have an impeccable sense of timing, with each new twist guaranteed to make the entire show look like a revolving door of moral scolding and unexpected public reckonings. For Maher, It's a textbook example of how moral crusades can morph into public relations nightmares for the very people trying to lead them. He's quick to say that anyone who steps into the role of judge and jury should be ready for the backlash if the spotlight flips back onto their own life. He reminded viewers that few public figures are squeaky clean, and those who claim the loudest moral authority often set themselves up for the biggest falls when skeletons tumble out of the closet. In Hostin's case, the revelations about her husband's alleged entanglements presented a made-for-TV instance of that cautionary tale. The fact that Maher delivered much of his commentary in his characteristic freewheeling style, part social critique, part late-night monologue, only amplified its sting. It wasn't couched in polite political discourse. It felt like a direct takedown, peppered with humor and a dash of disbelief at how Hostin seemed unwilling or unable to see that her own fortress was showing cracks. The live audience gasped at some moments, roared with laughter at others, and collectively groaned whenever Maher landed a verbal blow that was too accurate to ignore. Throughout all this, Maher didn't hold back from mentioning that Hostin's approach exemplifies a broader phenomenon in media, where sensational topics and colorful language are often prioritized over nuanced, balanced dialogue. He urged Hostin and her colleagues to consider whether their perpetual calls for accountability might be overshadowed by the chaos they generate. Hostin's entire brand relied on a sense of legal expertise and moral uprightness, which could crumble if the charges against her husband gained traction. Maher slyly commented that if she's eventually forced to step back from her role, it would serve as a stark reminder. Attacking someone else's alleged missteps can be a minefield if you're not absolutely certain of your own foundation. What truly electrified audiences was the rawness of Maher's takedown. He didn't couch it in tactful criticisms. He laid out each point with unmistakable confidence, ensuring viewers understood that Hostin's stance might be doing more harm than good, both for Trump's opposition and for her own credibility. The laughter and shocked expressions in the studio perfectly captured the moment. It wasn't just a casual argument about differing political views. It was a blistering critique of a public figure who'd played herself squarely in the role of moral arbiter, only to stumble when her own circumstances demanded the same level of scrutiny. As the dust settled, one conclusion seemed inevitable. In a media landscape where verbal sparring and headline-grabbing narratives dominate, even the most assured personalities can find themselves on the defensive overnight. Sometimes, all it takes is one well-aimed critique to transform the hunter into the hunted. And when the final credits rolled, no one watching could deny that Maher's dismantling of Hostin was a masterclass in turning someone's own rhetoric back on them. For more of the latest news, check out the next video.